Hello, Army. Welcome back to BTS on 7. Today, we're stepping into the opening night of a massive stadium run, the kind of night where a single city becomes the center of the entire fandom's attention for 24 hours. And at the center of it, in every sense, was Jimin, reintroducing himself with a look no one had seen from him before and reminding an entire stadium why his presence off the choreography, in the small, unscripted seconds, might be the most powerful thing he does. Let's start with the look, because it mattered. Jimin walked out that night with his hair styled in cornrows for the very first time, a debut so unexpected that fans spent the following hours combing through every clip trying to get a clean look at it. It was paired with soft, sun-lightened strands framing his face, catching the stage lights in a way that made him look almost golden under the spotlight. Some ARMY described it as the most grown, most confident era of his visual identity yet. A small braid here, a loose strand there, deliberately imperfect in a way that felt lived in rather than styled for a photo shoot. The outfit told its own story too. A sleeveless white tank, worn loose and slightly oversized, carried the tour's own lettering across the chest, half faded the way vintage band merchandise looks after years of wear, even though it was brand new that night. Small clusters of rhinestones were scattered across the fabric like scattered light, catching every flash from the crowd. The hem had been deliberately torn and left to hang in loose fringe threads, swinging every time he moved, every time he reached toward the barricade, every time he spun to face another section of the stadium. Below that, faded dip-dyed trousers ran long over heavy boots, the wash fading from pale denim at the waist into a deep earthy brown near the ankles, like the fabric itself had been standing in the Texas dust all day. A scattering of thin necklaces sat against his collarbones, catching the light just enough to draw the eye without ever overwhelming the rest of the outfit. It was rugged, a little worn in, a little rock and roll, and it suited the raw energy of an opening night perfectly. Off to the side, away from the main stage lights, there was a quieter version of this same look. In the hours before doors opened, Jimin was seen standing backstage against a plain black backdrop, the same tank and trousers on, a wide-brimmed brown hat resting loosely in one hand instead of on his head. No microphone, no choreography, no crowd. Just him, caught in a rare still moment, looking almost like a photograph pulled from a magazine spread rather than concert prep. It's the kind of image that reminds fans there is an entire quiet life happening in the hours before the roar of the stadium begins. But if the outfit was the headline, what happened at the barricade was the story fans couldn't stop talking about the next morning. At some point in the night, Jimin made his way toward the edge of the stage where the crowd presses closest to the barrier, the section where phones go up instantly and everyone leans forward hoping to be close enough to be noticed. He bent down toward a group of fans standing there, and in a moment that was caught from several different angles by people in the crowd, he reached out, touched one fan gently, and pressed a small affectionate gesture to the top of her head before continuing on. It lasted only a few seconds, but for the fan on the receiving end, it will likely be a memory that never fades. Around her, other fans reacted instantly, hands over mouths, phones shaking slightly from excitement, the kind of reaction that spreads through a crowd like a current. And then there was the section that meant something entirely different. Not far from where the general crowd stood, a smaller area had been set aside that night, quieter than the rest, reserved specifically for children who had been brought to the concert through the Make-A-Wish Foundation, one of the largest charitable organizations in the world, dedicated to granting the wishes of children facing critical and life-threatening illnesses, including leukemia and other childhood cancers. Through a program built around exactly this kind of moment, children are given the chance to meet the artists, athletes, or public figures they admire most. For one little girl in that section that night, her wish was simple and enormous at the same time: to meet BTS. What followed was gentle in a way that felt almost private, even surrounded by thousands of people. Jimin knelt toward her, placed a small ornament, a keychain, into her hands, then reached out and touched the top of her head softly before leaning in to place a light kiss on her cheek. As he stood to leave, he gave her a small, careful pat on the back, the whole exchange lasting only a matter of seconds, but carried out with what fans watching described as an almost overwhelming tenderness. Multiple angles of the moment circulated afterwards, each one showing a slightly different piece of it, and each new angle only made fans more emotional because it became clear just how deliberately soft he had been with her the entire time. Nearby, in the same reserved section, another child was sitting waiting, a young boy, his head shaved completely bare, a detail that instantly told longtime fans and newcomers alike exactly what kind of year he likely had been through. When it was his turn, the interaction was just as careful. He was pulled gently into a close embrace, his small laugh audible even through the noise at the stadium around him, his face breaking into the kind of wide, unguarded smile that only children seem to be able to produce even in the middle of very hard circumstances. For a boy who had almost certainly spent recent months in hospital rooms rather than stadium seats, that laugh, captured by someone nearby, became one of the most shared and most talked about images from the entire night. Many fans online pointed out how unusual it was to see this section acknowledged so directly and so gently in the middle of a full-scale stadium show, where every second is normally accounted for by choreography and pacing. Some ARMY speculated that this wasn't a spontaneous decision, but something planned quietly in advance, a deliberate choice to make space, literally and figuratively, for these children during a night built around spectacle. Whether or not that speculation is accurate, what is clear is that for a few minutes in the middle of one of the biggest shows of the year, the focus shifted entirely away from the performance and onto two children who had waited, in some cases, through very difficult months for exactly this moment. It's worth sitting with the contrast for a second. On one side of the night, cornrows debuting for the very first time, rhinestone-covered tour merch, a hat held loosely backstage, 80,000 people screaming his name. On the other, a keychain pressed in small hands, a kiss on a cheek, a laugh from a boy with no hair left from treatment. Both of these things happened on the same stage in the same few hours, and somehow neither one diminished the other. If anything, fans said the second moment made the first mean more, a reminder that behind the styling, the choreography, and the stadium lights, there is still a person capable of kneeling down and making a sick child laugh like nothing in the world is wrong. By the time the night wound down, ARMY across time zones were already piecing together every angle of the barricade moment, every clip of the Make-A-Wish section, every close-up of the cornrows catching the light. It became one of those nights that gets replayed for years, not because of a record-breaking setlist or a flawless vocal run, though there was plenty of that too, but because of a few unscripted seconds that reminded everyone watching exactly why this fandom holds on so tightly. That's the story from opening night. A new look debuting under stadium lights, a barricade moment fans won't stop talking about, and a quiet section of the crowd that turned out to hold the most powerful moment of the entire show. If this one moved you the way it moved us, give this video a like and drop a comment telling us which part hit you hardest, the cornrows, the barricade, or that little boy's laugh. Don't forget to subscribe to BTS on 7 and turn on notifications so you never miss the next Jimin update the moment it happens. Thank you so much for watching, ARMY. We'll see you in the next one.